this shit okay to be a Nazi out here? That's bullshit, bro. It's not okay. He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
There does not need to be a thousand.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. We believe in you, Shia. Free Shia.
He will not divide us.
Fuck you, you
He will
Nazis.
not divide us. He will not divide us.
He will
not
not
divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
It is often thought that Christianity and the occult are polar opposites, and even though some members of the occult oppose the Bible's moral and philosophical tenets, few in the occult will argue with the Bible's storyline. Not only will those in the occult quote from the Bible freely, but the occult and Christianity share common symbolism. From Genesis' tree of life to Revelation's mark of the beast, these two belief systems draw from a common tradition of allegory. Because Christianity and the occult share a symbolic tradition, this documentary will examine biblical symbols from the perspective of the occult. In the Bible's book of Genesis, God places Adam and Eve in the midst of the Garden of Eden. Eden, according to the Bible, was a paradise where illness and suffering were unheard of. As the story goes, this paradisical land of Eden had within its borders at least two trees. One tree was called the tree of life, and the other tree was called the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It is said that God told Adam and Eve that he permitted the eating of the fruit which grew from the tree of life, but the fruit which grew from the other tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, he did not permit the eating of. He further warned that if the forbidden fruit was eaten, that the guilty party would quote-unquote surely die.
And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou mayest eat freely, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die.
The two tenants of the garden, Adam and Eve, did not heed this edict for too long. Into the garden crept a serpent who assured Eve that she was indeed free to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that she would not die, and that after eating the fruit, her eyes would be opened, and she would be remade as the gods, knowing good and evil.
And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons.
According to the tale, the serpent told Eve the truth that her eyes would be opened by the forbidden fruit, but lied when he claimed that the fruit wouldn't kill her. After their disobedience, both Adam and his wife would be expelled from paradise and forced to live a life of toil and suffering east of the garden. Christians have long speculated the true meaning of this story, and some Christians were content in believing that the fruit and the story as a whole were literal. Even though modern Christians continue to speculate this story's meaning with less rigid interpretations, the occult perspective remains largely ignored. The Kabbalah, which is a set of ancient Hebrew texts, describe a framework of the universe which also contain two trees. The first of these trees is the tree of life, and the second tree is called the Qliphoth. According to Kabbalistic lore, the universe is composed of a series of dimensions, each called Sephirah, where energy that flows from the highest heaven slowly solidifies as it reaches each node until it arrives in the material world as matter. The roadmap for this descending energy is called the Tree of Life. Beginning at Kether, the highest knowable dimension, a pure and primal form of energy is given shape and polarity as it descends until finally reaching the physical world, called Malkuth. Malkuth, at the very bottom of the Tree of Life, is the material universe where humanity's day-to-day experiences take place. According to the Kabbalah, however, the whole of human experience is not limited to the material world, but also include the higher, more heavenly realms. It is said that the human physical body is nothing more than a mechanical perceiver for the higher and true selves. Between man and his true self, often called higher self or true will, lies two veils, and these two veils divide the consciousness of man into essentially two parts, his higher self and his lower self. The lower self represents humanity's primal and animal drives. It is here where man's ego and lusts can be found. Above the lower self can be found the higher self, and this higher self, which is often called one's guardian angel, represents man's divine nature. The whole situation can be likened to a video game. When playing a video game, two copies of oneself are brought into existence. The first copy is the true you, your true self, the one sitting in a chair with controller in hand. The second copy, your lower self, often called your lower will or ego, is the one inside the video game, jumping, shooting, and ducking inside the 3D computer-generated world. The video game version of yourself is nothing more than a perceiver for your true self, whose flesh cannot exist inside the electronic confines of a computer game. There is, however, another tree in the Kabbalistic garden, the Qliphoth. The Qliphoth, sometimes called the Tree of Knowledge of Good and Evil by modern occultists, is an underworld of demons. The Qliphoth is said to be identical to the Tree of Life, where it exists below Malkuth. This infernal tree is said to be ruled by the fallen angel Samael, who is the Kabbalistic equivalent to Satan from the Bible. It is the Tree of Life, along with its counterpart, the Qliphoth, that is the origin of the concept of 7 hells and 7 heavens.
Below the tree, proceeding from Malkuth, is the Tree of Knowledge of Good and Evil, which is between the Tree of Life and the world, or Asaya, or shells, represented by the coiled-up dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, being the 7 infernal palaces and the 10 Averse Sephiroth.
Occultists claim that just as man has a divine copy of himself, called the guardian angel, who exists in the higher realms of the Tree of Life, he also has an infernal copy of himself, called the guardian demon. Expectedly, this so-called guardian demon takes residence in the Tree of Knowledge of Good and Evil. Both guardian angels and guardian demons are called tutelary spirits, which are spirits assigned to a human at birth. Muslims, similar to occultists, also believe that each human is assigned an angel and a demon at birth. A large part of occult practice involves contacting or uniting with one's tutelary spirit. The most common operation is often called knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel. Coming into contact with one's guardian angel is not only one of the occult's highest achievements, but a necessary step in gaining mastery over magic itself. After a series of rituals designed to help the spirit slowly climb the Tree of Life, you will finally come into contact with the true you that exists in the heavenly realms. After achieving unity with one's tutelary spirit, the magician not only experiences ever-increasing psychic and intellectual ability, but most importantly, true illumination. Yoga, which literally means unity, is based on similar principles of connecting to one's ultimate divine form. This process of using magic to increase one's psychic and intellectual powers is called psychic development and has long been known as alchemy. Initiation is another term often used to describe spiritual development. In movies like The Last Airbender, the Christ child is learning to master new powers as he gains mastery over the 4 magical elements: air, water, earth, and fire. The movie also contains the 4 nations of elementals acknowledged by all occultists. According to the official story, alchemy is the controlled transmutation of one metal to another. The very utterance of the word alchemy invokes in the commoner mental imagery of a medieval eccentric foolishly attempting to turn lead into gold. Magicians, both modern and ancient, have nurtured and enjoyed this misconception. As usual, these magicians cleverly conceal the truth of their work in symbols, while the profane tried in vain on account of taking the symbolic literal. The metals of alchemy have absolutely no relation to the physical manifestation of the metal. The minerals of alchemy have absolutely no relation to the physical mineral whose name it bared. The answer, in part, is to be found in the hexagram and the Tree of Life. The hexagram, falsely called the Star of David, is only connected to the Jewish people because of the Kabbalah. The hexagram is actually a symbol for the 7 of the 9 Sephiroth above the material plane. It is essentially a symbol of the 7 magical planets: the Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. Each of these 7 planets are associated with and correspond to a particular metal. Further, each of those 7 of 9 Sephiroth above malkuth also correspond to a particular metal. With this in mind, the hexagram and all of its correspondences can be nearly superimposed on the Tree of Life, with only the sphere of Binah, which represents Saturn, ruining the perfect superimposition. Similar to how the fruit from the Tree of Life can increase one's power, so too can fruit from the Tree of Knowledge of Good and Evil, because it is the realm of demons, including your own demon. If you recall, Adam and Eve, after eating from the Tree of Knowledge, knew they were naked and made aprons for themselves with fig leaves. Could this be the reason why Masons wear aprons? Is the apron a symbolic reference to the fig leaves of Eden? Do they use the apron to express in a coded manner that they themselves have eaten the forbidden fruit and gained its powers? The Tree of Life is further divided into 3 pillars. The left pillar is the feminine pillar, represented by the moon or salt. The middle pillar is androgynous and is represented by both the planet and metal Mercury. And the right pillar is masculine, represented by the sun and the mineral sulfur. This symbolism is plainly apparent in almost every depiction of an alchemist or alchemical magic, because somewhere in the picture will be both the sun and the moon, the very essence of uniting opposites.
The ancient alchemists were prone to veil their writings in obscure symbolisms, mythology, and various blinds. In this case, the principle of sulfur is not common sulfur or brimstone. Salt did not indicate common table salt, nor did mercury reflect the matter found in thermometers, quicksilver. There was an analog between these, but definitely not a one-to-one relationship. This blind hindered many a budding alchemist.
The cover for the book Self-Initiation into the Golden Dawn Tradition says a mouthful with eyes to see. Below, a man blindfolded, being led by a white rabbit through 2 pillars and a long journey in the darkness, finally reaching the illuminated peak of the holy mountain, clearly symbolized by the unification of opposites. The picture brings to mind Alice following the white rabbit and falling into the rabbit hole, or even Neo from the movie The Matrix. In the movie, Neo is contacted by the rebels of the machines and told that the white rabbit will lead him to the truth of the Matrix. And similar to Guardian Angel lore, Neo is freed from his blindness and awakens to discover his true self, his true body. Like the example I illustrated earlier, Neo learns he was simply playing a video game the whole time. Both white and black magicians put great emphasis on gaining contact with one's holy guardian angel. Aleister Crowley, the most famous magician of the 20th century, made perfectly clear the importance of unity with one's holy guardian angel.
It should never be forgotten for a single moment that the central and essential work of the magicians is the attainment of the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. Once he has achieved this, he must of course be left entirely in the hands of that angel, who can be invariably and inevitably relied upon to lead him to the further great step, crossing of the abyss and the attainment of the grade of the Master of the Temple.
Aleister Crowley, along with most magicians both modern and ancient, believed that without acquiring contact with one's guardian angel, the practitioner would be left wide open to endless deceptions from the spirit world. Aleister Crowley, who himself was a black magician and Satanist, makes an interesting remark regarding the difference between white magic and black magic.
As was said at the opening of the 2nd chapter, the single supreme ritual is the attainment of the knowledge and conversation of the holy guardian angel. It is the raising of the complete man in a vertical straight line. Any deviation from this line tends to become black magic. Any other operation is black magic.
Most black magicians revel in muddying the lines between right and wrong, white magic and black magic. Even white magicians claim that the difference between white magic and black magic is solely based on the intention of the practitioner. But Aleister Crowley, in his book Magic in Theory and Practice, makes a rather all-encompassing statement regarding the line between. Here, he suggests that any magic, regardless of intention or desired outcome, is black magic if it is not in pursuit of attaining knowledge of one's guardian angel. Case closed. According to Crowley's definition, even the most benign love spells are classified as black magic. It is indeed interesting that Crowley's comment would parallel the edict given to man in the Garden of Eden, that the only thing that is truly permitted is eating from the tree of life. The movie Gamer depicts in a subtle way contact with one's true self. In the movie, real humans who are strictly confined to a gaming environment are puppeted by other people who exist outside the gaming environment. During the movie, the puppet and the puppeteer finally have a direct conversation. The mark of the beast is yet another biblical term which has been subject to endless speculation and interpretation. The term is found in the book of Revelation, which is the last book of the Bible. The Bible suggests that there will come a time when the Antichrist, also called the beast, will force all people to bear his mark, or his name, or the number of his name, in order to buy or sell goods.
And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666.
Because of its obscurity, this single passage has produced endless hours of speculation, and most of this speculation is in regards to the mark of the beast, rather than the means by which people will wear the name of the beast, or the number of the beast, which is 666. The occult, like many Christian prophecy speculators, have given the actual mark of the beast more attention than the method by which people will one day be forced to wear the name or number of the Antichrist. The mark of the beast, outside of occult circles, is commonly interpreted as a new kind of monetary exchange where computer chips serve as a form of identity in a cash-free society. This interpretation, where the mark of the beast is a computer chip embedded into one's body, is not, however, shared by members of the occult. In occult circles, the mark of the beast, sometimes called the mark of the devil or the mark of Cain, is a power granted by the devil which allows those with the mark to shapeshift from humans to hideous creatures. The most common description of those who are endowed with the mark of the beast parallel what are often called werewolves or lichens. It is said that the mark of the beast is the darkest form of spiritual alchemy, where those who desired it were forced to bargain their eternal souls to Satan. After being endowed with the mark of the beast, the individual can shapeshift at will. Those who claim to have been given the mark of the beast describe it as a form of self-deification, where they rise above the limits of human clay and are reborn in the image of the devil. The reason that the mark of the beast is also called the mark of Cain, is that members of Satanism freely connect biblical Cain with the Antichrist, and further, they associate the mark that Cain was given with the mark of the beast itself. In the Bible, Cain, who was said to be the firstborn son of Adam and Eve, killed his brother Abel, after which God placed a mark on Cain and sent him away from his family. This mark placed on Cain was not only punishment, but prevented other people from killing him.
Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. And the Lord said unto him, Therefore whoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken upon him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord, and dwelt in the land of Nod, on the east of Eden.
The occult not only associates Cain and the mark placed upon him with the Antichrist and his mark, but also claim that Cain was in fact the son of Satan and the whore of Babylon, or Satan and Eve, rather than the son of Adam and Eve. Equinox, an Aleister Crowley publication, states,
Their prince is Lams, Samael, the angel of poison and of death. His wife is the harlot, or woman of whoredom, and united they are called the beast. Thus the infernal trinity is completed, which is, so to speak, the averse and caricature of the supernal creative one. Samael is considered to be identical with Satan. In the first place, there is again the woman riding on the bull, which is the reflection of Babylon that rideth on the beast. And also there is an Assyrian legend of a woman with a fish, and also there is a legend of Eve and the serpent, for Cain was the child of Eve and the serpent, and not Eve and Adam. And therefore, when he had slayed his brother, who was the first murderer, having sacrificed living things to his demon, had Cain the mark upon his brow, which is the mark of the beast spoken of in the Apocalypse, and is the sign of initiation.
Michael W. Ford, a modern satanic author, makes similar connections between Cain, his mark, and the Antichrist.
I conjure thee, Cain, who is the earthly devil, who is the master of spirits, encircle and awaken within my flesh, my blood, my mind. By thy depths of which I will walk herein, shall I become reborn, in the name and mark of the devil, whom I swear my spirit unto. I am myself the Redeemer and the bringer of the infernal pact, which holds no bounds nor mortal strain, yet my desires shall be filled by the eye within the blackened triangle. You will never be able to turn back from the path, as the lonely path of godhood shall be marked upon your brow as the mark of Cain. As you are shadow, allow yourself to grow close to this infernal king and enter his essence. Open your astral eyes as this shadow, and understand you may take any form you wish. You are vampire, incubus, set-like, and immortal in essence. You become as Ahriman, the infernal king who shapes the world according to his desire. You may communicate and seek various points of congress with all goetic spirits in the dreaming plane. Your gate is the dream. This is the Sabbat body of which you shall go forth. Lilith drank the blood of man, and bred her children from their seed, taken from nocturnal congress with those sleeping. Desert travelers were drained of life, and their children were given to her vampiric children to grow strong. Lilith opened the gates of Arazura, called the secret place, and the great shadow Ahriman came before me. I took the mark of the beast, and Lilith's mark, being the bloodied coal. Lilith taught me the arts of the vampire, and prepared my spirit and flesh to walk between the world. The true mark of Ahriman was given, and I passed between the light to the shadows. Upon waking in the sand, I could face again the sun, yet see equally as well in moonlight. I mark myself with the kiss of the devil, that I may transform in spirit unto the phantom shade of night. I shall become the wolf. The spirit takes the form that it so desires at the moment, joins with familiars and other demonic forms, and goes forth to a place which centralizes the imagination in an infernal sense. The devil is by this standard a mirror of the liberated mind, awaiting confirmation of self-belief and the desire to becoming something else. Remember, throughout history, the devil has always been a shapeshifter. No common form may stay for too long. Cain is the first sorcerer and shapeshifter who drifted from his tribe to become as God. He in turn was taught witchcraft and sorcery deeper by his spiritual mother, Lilith. It was soon after that Cain would wander the earth forever in spirit form, through the blood and psyche of his initiates, and manifest through their deeds and work. The touch of Azazel brings a fire to the clay, which then allows that genius to shape his flesh in dream and waking according to his desire.
The Necronomicon, a book commonly thought of as the fictional tales of H.P. Lovecraft, also contain a reference to the shapeshifters who bear the mark of the beast.
Know, fifthly, that the worshippers of Tiamat are abroad in the world, and will give fight to the magician. Lo, they have worshipped the serpent from ancient times, and have always been with us. And they are to be known by their seeming human appearance, which has the mark of the beast upon them, as they change easily into the shapes of animals, and haunt the nights of men, and by their odor, which comes of burning incenses unlawful to the worship of the Elder One.
Even if you believe the Necronomicon to be complete fiction, what is important here is the context by which the reference to the mark of the beast was used. Repeatedly is the term used to describe Satan worshippers who have the appearance of being human, but in fact can shapeshift into the forms of animals. In the movie Nightbreed, the main character becomes obsessed with a hidden community of shapeshifters that live underground, beneath a cemetery. Upon arriving, he is bitten by a red-colored monster who refers to himself as the Beast. After this, he begins to transform into a werewolf that thirsts for blood. After gaining entry to the underground community, he is initiated and welcomed into their tribe. Similar to the story of Cain, who was given the mark that prevents anyone from slaying him, his new condition as a werewolf makes it virtually impossible to kill him. In the movie, a character named Baphomet, the Baptizer, was the founder of this underground community of monsters. The Bible also associates the Antichrist with a personage called the Beast of the Sea. This character is so called because he is not only associated with the beast, who is the Antichrist, but also because he is said to rise up out of the sea. Its symbolic description is a scarlet-colored beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, and 10 crowns upon its 7 heads. The color scarlet is simply red, with a slight tinge of orange.
And I stood upon the sand of the sea, and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon its horns 10 crowns, and upon its heads the names of blasphemy.
The Bible also describes this multi-headed beast being ridden by a harlot wearing the colors scarlet and purple. This woman is described as the whore of Babylon and the mother of abominations.
So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth.
The Bible identifies the 10 horns upon the 7 heads of the beast as 10 kings who will rule alongside the Antichrist.
And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast.
One Bible passage suggests that the sea, quote-unquote, is nothing but symbolism for the bottomless pit. The bottomless pit, often referred to as the abyss, appears to be another place or dimension where the beast and the multitude of demons reside.
Beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was, and is not, and yet is.
Another Bible passage implies that, quote-unquote, the waters is symbolism for the many nations.
And he saith unto me, The waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues.
The beliefs of many in the occult coincide closer with the first interpretation of the sea. In the occult, the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns represent the Qliphoth, or the tree of knowledge of good and evil, where the 7 heads represent the 7 hells, and the 10 horns representing the 10 rulers of the underworld. On the tree of life lies a region called the abyss, and is often called the 11th unofficial Sephiroth, called Da'at. If you recall, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the Qliphoth, was identical to and below the tree of life. This alternate tree is commonly referred to as an averse tree of life, averse meaning hostile, against, and opposite.
Tempted by the fruit of the tree of knowledge, stooped down to the Qliphoth. The columns were unsupported, and the Sephirotic scheme was shattered, and with it fell Adam the Mycoprosopus. Then arose the great dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, cutting by his folds Malkuth from the Sephiroth, and linking it to the kingdom of the shells. The 7 lower Sephiroth were cut off from the 3 supernals in Da'at. The floor is black, having upon it also a triangle enclosed with the heptagram, bearing the titles of the averse and evil Sephiroth, as shown by the great red dragon with 7 heads.
Let's return to Israel Regardie, a knowledgeable magician and prolific occult author, regarding his interpretation of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the beast with 7 heads.
Below the tree, proceeding from Malkuth, is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is between the tree of life and the world of Asaya or shells, represented by the coiled-up dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, being the 7 infernal palaces and the 10 averse Sephiroth. The great goddess Eve, tempted by the fruits of the tree of knowledge, whose branches tend upwards to the 7 lower Sephiroth, but also downwards to the kingdom of shells, reached down to them, and the two pillars were left unsupported. Then the Sephirotic tree was shattered. She fell, and with her fell the great Adam. And the great red dragon arose with his 7 heads and 10 horns, and Eden was desolated. And the folds of the dragon enclosed Malkuth, and linked it to the kingdom of shells. And the heads of the dragon rose, and the 7 lower Sephiroth, even up to Da'at, at the feet of Alma Elohim. Before you are the 10 averse and evil Sephiroth of the Qliphothic or shells, collected into 7 palaces, wherein the apocalyptic mystery of the 7 heads and 10 horns.
The Whore of Babylon, like the Mark of the Beast, has itself received endless speculation and interpretation from Christian prophecy speculators. And like the beast himself, the Whore of Babylon has often been equated with a nation, church, or some other human power structure. The most common of these speculations is that the Whore of Babylon represents the Catholic Church, and, predictably, this interpretation is shared by many of those who are not Catholic but Protestant, most notably the Seventh-day Adventists. Catholics, meanwhile, claim that the Whore of Babylon is in fact the city of Jerusalem, citing the great Jewish power which has risen in recent times. Jehovah's Witnesses declare that all other forms of Christendom is part of the apostate religion of Babylon the Great. Here is what the Bible says about the Whore of Babylon.
So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns.
Babylon the Great is described as an entity or city which is drunk from the blood of the saints, and rules over the kings of the earth, and uses sorcery to do so. It is also said that the beast which she rides upon will one day betray her and destroy her. Adding to the respectable list of interpretations for this most lambasted entity, the occult interprets the whore in a similar fashion as it interprets the beast, a singular, particular being with a power structure beneath it. Occultists associate the Whore of Babylon with a number of mythological goddesses. In Egypt, she is Isis or Nut. In Greece, she is Hecate or Astarte. In India, she is Kali. Lilith, Hilarion, Az, Sophia, and Tiamat are also frequently used names for this goddess. Interestingly, the Whore of Babylon is commonly equated with the aforementioned Eve from the book of Genesis. She is often spoke of as the good and faithful wife, widowed, and finally becoming a host to some evil presence, and becoming evil herself. In both the Bible as well as the occult, this goddess is crowned with many titles: the Whore of Babylon, Babylon the Great, Mother of Harlots, Mother of Abominations, the Scarlet Woman, and so forth. She is also given titles like the Bride of Chaos and the Bride of the Beast, because it is said that she is now the consort of the Antichrist, rather than Adam. The occult not only associate her with vampires, but claims that she is the mother of a multitude of demons. It is also claimed by the occult, as well as the Bible, that Babylon will be, at least initially, in firm control of the beast. Those involved with witchcraft and Wicca worship the quote-unquote Mother Goddess, unaware that the Whore of Babylon has similar titles like the Mother Goddess, the Great Mother, and Mother Earth. Further, this goddess is repeatedly associated with the moon, the number 7, the number 3, and the owl. Jack Whiteside Parsons, the brilliant rocket scientist and black magician, had much to say regarding his encounters with the Scarlet Woman. John Parsons, sometimes known as Jack Parsons, claims that he evoked the goddess and engaged in sexual congress with her. The goddess, according to Parsons, claims that she arrives in the midst of humanity in the form of avatars, using one body after another till her will and the will of the beast is fulfilled.
Glory unto the Scarlet Woman, Babylon, the mother of abominations, that rideth upon the beast. For she hath spilt their blood in every corner of the earth, and lo, she hath mingled it in the cup of her whoredom. And I, Belarion, Antichrist, do lift up my voice and prophesy, and I say, I shall bring all men to the law of the beast 666, and in his law I shall conquer the world. And within 7 years of this time, Babylon, the Scarlet Woman Hilarion, will manifest among ye, and bring this my work to its fruition.
Aleister Crowley has also made numerous references to the Whore of Babylon as a singular entity who is both the mother and the concubine of the Antichrist.
Yes, I, the beast, my scarlet whore bestriding me, naked and crowned, drunk on her golden cup of fornication, boasting herself my bedfellow, have trodden her in the marketplace, and roared this word that every woman is a star. This is the secret of the Holy Grail, that is the sacred vessel of Our Lady, the Scarlet Woman, Babylon, the mother of abominations, the bride of chaos, that rideth upon our Lord, the beast. Thou shalt drain out thy blood, that is thy life, into the golden cup of her fornication. Thou shalt mingle thy life with the universal life. Thou shalt keep not back one drop.
Of all the occult writers, it is Michael Ford, as usual, who has the most to say about the satanic perspective regarding the Whore of Babylon.
Babylon is the Kabbalistically restored spelling of the biblical Babylon, the Great Whore. This goddess is in union with the beast 666 in the book of Revelation. Aleister Crowley restored this goddess to her aspect of holding the cup of her fornications, from which the blood of the saints dwelled. Those who traverse and persevere through the path of Thelema, or holy magic, might offer their blood to the great cup, opening themselves to the glory of Babylon. The queen of the witches, Sabat, is none other than Lilith, known in Persian mythology as or Je, the harlot who is the embodiment of sexual power. She is known through many cultures, Hebrew, Persian, and European as Hecate, the triple goddess of the crossroads, who is mother of death, shades, witchcraft, and necromancy. The ones who fell with Lucifer were taught sexual magic and procreation by Az, Lilith, who resided near the Red Sea in caves. Az resided also in the blackest depths of hell. She instructed demons, monsters, and other Druj the art of sexual copulation and how to spawn demons. Az Lilith was the mother of succubi and incubi, demons who held sexual congress with humans, and with their emissions spawned other shadow forms.
Egyptian mythology, Greek mythology, the mythologies derived from ancient Mesopotamia, and of course the Bible are the primary traditions from which occultists tend to draw symbolism. As you can see, Satanists and occultists in general not only use biblical symbolism, but reinforce it with elaborate details and explanations. In fact, it is those involved with natural magic, like Wicca, that are most likely to disregard the biblical tradition, whereas white magicians and black magicians who practice ritual magic acknowledge the Bible as a viable source of practical information, debating only the Bible's philosophical principles. In this regard, can Christianity and Satanism be thought of as opposite sides of the same coin?
Them both were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves aprons.
According to the tale, the serpent told Eve the truth that her eyes would be opened by the forbidden fruit, but lied when he claimed that the fruit wouldn't kill her. After their disobedience, both Adam and his wife would be expelled from paradise and forced to live a life of toil and suffering east of the garden. Christians have long speculated the true meaning of this story, and some Christians were content in believing that the fruit and the story as a whole were literal. Even though modern Christians continue to speculate this story's meaning with less rigid interpretations, the occult perspective remains largely ignored. The Kabbalah, which is a set of ancient Hebrew texts, describe a framework of the universe which also contain two trees. The first of these trees is the tree of life, and the second tree is called the Qliphoth. According to Kabbalistic lore, the universe is composed of a series of dimensions, each called Sephirah, where energy that flows from the highest heaven slowly solidifies as it reaches each node until it arrives in the material world, warned that if the forbidden fruit was eaten, that the guilty party would quote-unquote surely die.
And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden thou mayest eat freely, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die.
The two tenants of the garden, Adam and Eve, did not heed this edict for too long. Into the garden crept a serpent who assured Eve that she was indeed free to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that she would not die, and that after eating the fruit, her eyes would be opened, and she would be remade as the gods, knowing good and evil.
And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. and the eyes of
This shit okay to be a Nazi out here? That's bullshit, bro. It's not okay. He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us. He will not divide us.
He will not divide us. He will not divide us. There does not need to be a thousand. He will not divide us. 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 We believe in you, Shia. Free Shia. He will not divide us. Fuck you, you Nazis. He will not divide us. 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 He will not divide us.
It is often thought that Christianity and the occult are polar opposites, and even though some members of the occult oppose the Bible's moral and philosophical tenets, few in the occult will argue with the Bible's storyline. Not only will those in the occult quote from the Bible freely, but the occult and Christianity share common symbolism. From Genesis' Tree of Life to Revelation's Mark of the Beast, these two belief systems draw from a common tradition of allegory. Because Christianity and the occult share a symbolic tradition, this documentary will examine biblical symbols from the perspective of the occult. In the Bible's book of Genesis, God places Adam and Eve in the midst of the Garden of Eden. Eden, according to the Bible, was a paradise where illness and suffering were unheard of. As the story goes, this paradisical land of Eden had within its borders at least two trees. One tree was called the Tree of Life, and the other tree was called the Tree of the Knowledge of Good and Evil. It is said that God told Adam and Eve that he permitted the eating of the fruit which grew from the Tree of Life, but the fruit which grew from the other tree, the Tree of the Knowledge of Good and Evil, he did not permit the eating of. He further